Welcome to the What's Your Weird Story podcast.
Everyone has at least one good story.
And some of us have stories that are just to the left of normal.
We're interested in the ones that push the boundaries of what we can perceive.
Stories that defy explanations.
Stories with an air of mystery.
Stories we might not share
for fear of being thought of differently.
But don't worry, we're all friends here. So, what's your weird story? Hello, Weirdsville. How you doing? It's us, once again, your friends, Barry and Adam and Barry, here with the What's Your Weird Story podcast. That's what you are listening to right here, right now. And I am one of your hosts, Adam Beebe. And with me, as always, is my homie, my ride or die bitch, my old school, Barry Johnson. Hello, Barry.
Oh, man. Now that was an introduction. Thank you so much, man. I'm good. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing all right, man.
Good.
You know, just plugging along, trying to adjust to life as it's getting loosened from the quarantine and such.
Yep,
but still, you know, still got to be precautious and everything.
Right. Yep.
I've been thinking about buying a pair of hair clippers, so that I can cut my own hair.
Good. That's a good move.
Because I could just, you know, I can just give myself buzz it down anyway. Because that's all I do anymore.
I was thinking about doing that too. I know a guy and he does his own hair and you'd never know it. He does such a good job. And I'm like, now how did you do that? He's like, dude, he said, there's a lot of shaved heads. There's a lot of buzzed heads before I got good at, you know, fading and stuff like that.
Right.
But I'm kind of like, man, maybe I should do that. Because a situation like we just went through, not being able to get your hair cut. And I'm not, hey, I'll buzz my head. Right. I'm not one of these guys that needs a suave haircut. Just give me something short and I'm fine with it. So I think that's smart move, man.
Yeah, my friend Johnny Sideburns, he used to do his own haircuts. So I was thinking about that. And have you ever given anybody a haircut?
I have.
Before?
Yeah, I have. You know what I found was the hardest part? Is sometimes you get those lines. You know the lines that you get left with by the clippers sometimes when you're
yeah.
I could never really quite figure that out. I was like, okay, I guess you go against the grain and then maybe I don't know how you get rid of those. But when I was into hardcore, I went and shaved my head and did all that kind of stuff. So I did that myself. I think I had a pair of clippers at one point in time, but my dad's got a Flowbee.
Oh, does he?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And that's a one size fits all type operation there.
Yeah. That makes sense. They're your dad.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. You hook it up to the vacuum and you just go to town. So he's always offering to give free Flowbee haircuts, but there's no takers.
Well, I've only cut two people's hair in my life. One when I was in college. And I cut our friend Jennifer's hair, Jen and Dave, Dave who designed our Spin Gemorama logo there. But yeah, we were hanging out. It was her roommate Josh and me and her. We were all hanging out one Friday or Saturday night 'cause that was our little crew there, and she was like she wanted a haircut and she trusted me enough to let her cut her hair, a girl,
Wow.
And I did it, and you know what? I did a pretty good job.
Did you?
I did a pretty good job, yeah.
Did you do any layering or anything like that?
No. I just kind of cut it like as what they call like a wedge,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it was like
the wedge
back.
Yeah.
And then went down longer in front, that kind of a thing. And she went and got it kind of evened out a little bit by a professional hair cutter who commented and said, I did a very good job for being my first cut. So,
look at you, man.
Technically it was my second haircut. My first haircut, I don't know if you'll remember this, but I certainly do because it was very impactful in my life.
Yeah.
But it's we were in preschool.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
at we went to preschool there at the Methodist Church there in Kingfisher.
Yep.
And we were cutting. We were sitting at the tables, and they had the little tables there, and we had a kind of like an L shaped because it was in that first room, that the nursery.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And so we're just sitting there, cutting stuff out of paper.
Yeah.
And so we have the little safety scissors, and I'm sitting at the end, or at one table, and I look over to the right of me, and I see this little girl, and I remember her name's Cassie Knoll.
I remember Cassie.
She moved really early on, but I remember her name forever because of this. She had long, straight, beautiful,
blonde hair. Oh yeah,
blonde, just like a little angel, man.
Yep.
So I look over there, and she's got her back to me, and she's cutting away, and everybody. So I look over there, and I look back at my hands, cutting, and I look, and this is back when the safety scissors were just, they were metal with a round tip.
That's right. That's right.
And so I look back at her hair, and I look back again, and then I just take my hand off my paper, and I go over there, and I go snip. Right there in the back. And I go back to cutting my paper, and I don't know why I did it.
Yeah.
I'm like 4, but I remember this. Because I got into a lot of trouble, and I did not know how they could have possibly figured out that it was me.
Oh, that is hilarious. That's hilarious. Now, did you cut like at an angle, or did you just cut a chunk of it out?
I cut a chunk
of it out, man.
In the back.
Wow.
And then, and this was still, and it was probably, a good, from the tip, from the bottom of it, it was probably a good, 3 or 4 inches.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's,
it was
it's noticeable.
It was very noticeable. And of course, very, and a chunk on the floor of hair.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And again, I didn't know. I guess I knew it was sneaky. I knew kind of it was wrong, maybe, but like I didn't fully understand, especially to a little girl.
Yeah.
What having to get, who probably had never had a haircut.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
So yeah, your
day at the barber salon started very early.
Yes. So I'm thinking I'll probably have a good shot if I get a pair of clippers and take care of mine.
Yeah. Oh, that's great, man. Yeah, my son Liam gave. Well, he didn't give, but he got a permanent on the top of his head, which is hilarious. I mean, we're going back. Everything goes back. Everything that was cool a long time ago is now, 25, 30 years later is now cool again to get a perm,
Yeah, well, at least it's not a mullet, the permed mullet.
Oh God, just the worst, man.
Just in the back.
We called that the lamb butt. Remember
the lamb butt, dude.
Yeah.
Doug Poole had one, and I never had one.
Oh man, I had a natural curl, so I didn't have to have one.
My dad was sensible enough to not allow me. My brother, he got a perm.
Yeah,
and like there's photographic evidence of that. Right. I always had pretty much just the bowl cut for the longest time, and then the side part and with the weight line.
Right.
As I got into high school.
Right.
But that was about it for me. My dad never let me get too adventurous in a haircut.
Yeah, and that's probably a good thing.
Yeah. I couldn't grow it out long. I couldn't do anything like that.
Yeah.
That's good because I am fortunate that I have no mullet pictures, unlike other co-hosts of mine.
Yeah, you're lucky. You're lucky, man. Oh boy. Well, let's move on. Let's get into what we're doing today.
Yeah, hey, you know what? We're very lucky, and we're very excited to have some of our good friends back that we've made through the podcast, who are full of great stories, amazing stories. We've got Chad and Alta returned again for their third visit or third episode.
And we pick up kind of where we sort of left off, and we got some really good ones. We got some good stories.
Yeah, so let's go ahead. Let's just jump into it, man. Chad and Alta, always a pleasure to have you on. What's your weird story?
Well, I'm not even sure where we left off with you all.
Well, when last we met with Chad and Alta on the What's Your Weird Story podcast, I took some notes. When last we talked, you guys had, we went through your early life in the first episode up until you met and all of that. And then primarily in the second episode, we really focused on the 1997 event, the abduction or abduction, as you call it in the French Quarter in your book. And then we talked about some of the aftermath of that with the Wolf Boy. And you talked quite a bit about the aliens and about your experience in the abduction. And you mentioned how I think it was Chad's family, his dad and his brother, they saw the same UFO you guys saw over Walmart. They saw over the Temple of the Puma in Cancun, right? And then that kind of, I think that kind of caught us up to where you were. But then you added a contemporary story, one that just happened where Chad was in a time loop,
right? Valentine's.
Yeah. Right. So you got about 23 years to fill in a gap of high strangeness. You got anything happen in between?
Yeah, wouldn't that just be the most strange and boring story? No. No. We do have some interesting, I think they're very interesting, second-hand accounts of some things that have happened here in the quarter. Through folks that we think of as family that live here. One happened in a restaurant. I call it Haunted Pizza Restaurant. If you ever care to look into it, what's the name of the pizza place, Chad? Louisiana Pizza?
Yeah, Louisiana Pizza Kitchen
is the name of the business.
That sounds like a place that's going to have alligator on a pie.
They did have a duck pizza the other day.
Yeah.
A duck on it. It was good.
Or possibly roadkill. You know what? If I was that place, if I had all meat pizza, I would definitely call it the roadkill special. Just to have it all.
Sell every one of them. Well, back when we lived here originally in 95 was when we moved to the French Quarter originally. It was 95, 96, 97, I'm not sure. I can't remember all of a sudden the exact year. That it was, there was a massacre literally that took place there. And that's the language used in describing it. It was an inside job, and folks that opened that place up and management, if I'm not mistaken, were all herded into the cooler and all shot and killed.
Ooh, wow.
And, well, needless to say, we drive past, we used to, before we moved to the quarter, we just moved to the French Quarter in March. Prior to that, we've been in a motorhome, and we were living outside of the quarter about 20 or 30 minutes away, kind of out in the country. And I work in a shop in the quarter, so Chad's my chauffeur and my everything in that regards. And so as he's driving me to work, we would have to go past that. I call it the Haunted Pizza Place. Mm-hmm. Anyhow, we like their food. We love their pizza. And so Chad he got to know this guy that worked there, and then I got to know him. We became very close. Chad, do you mind sharing real quick?
Yeah, he said that they would put the pizza up on the shelf, for the waiters to come get it, in the window. And he said that it's happened numerous times where
on camera
where the pizza doesn't just slide off; it goes off with a force and lands 6-8 foot away.
Whoa!
It's been shoved off the counter, onto the floor. And he said that there's cold spots in where the walk-in cooler used to be. There's like a cold spot there, and it's just
Bathrooms?
the bathroom has had some weird
Tell him about his
things.
bathroom experience with the paper towels.
Yeah.
He said,
He said that he tried to grab some paper towels as he was walking out the bathroom.
That were just stacked on top of trash can or something?
No, he was pulling them out, and the door kind of hit him, and he dropped the napkins. And he said when he got the door back open, instantly, he said they were just nice, neat, and stacked right on top of the trash can or whatever it was that was sitting there. And he said it was just so crazy and just creeped him out.
Yeah. Just he doesn't work there any longer, needless to say. But that was interesting to hear kind of these, what we consider this, somebody we trust implicitly and who also is not into ghosty stuff and isn't going around, carrying on with this. The other one is we have a couple friends, middle-aged couple friends that live in Mississippi who drive here and rent they've got an apartment right here, not too far from us, here in the middle of the quarter. This is their getaway town and party town and so on. And anyhow, they are not into this stuff at all. It's not a subject we discuss. But anyhow, they have a shadow, a shadow being, a shadow man, a shadow something. Yeah.
He's got they describe him with like a top hat and, just
out of timelessness.
Yeah, they said that they can smell like cologne and cigar, and neither one. Well, she smokes, but she doesn't smoke a cigar. She just smokes cigarettes.
And not in her house,
And not in her house.
Right.
So, and she knew one of the guys that died in that apartment.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, I've asked her what little I do talk to her, because when people aren't comfortable, you lose friends a lot that way. So I've taken hints, but what she has shared with me is, I'll ask her, how long are they in your presence, kind of, how long do you witness it? And she's like, no, they just walk through, like it's just walking through. And I'm like, I've heard this many times. And then, of course, keeps reminding us we're in a new apartment here that's not new at all. It's got a balcony. It's on the second floor. Mm-hmm. These buildings are 300 years old.
Yeah.
300 years old.
Yeah.
So, we can get back to all of that because there's more to share with you about what we've discovered here being back in the quarter, especially with all this silence going on around us.
Yes.
Streets are silent and it has a real creepy feel to it to boot.
Yes.
But if you'd like, then if we could get back to, I don't know, did we share with you all when we're living now, we've left left New Orleans in 2001. We moved to Alabama. That's where his father and Chad's parents live, and he had siblings there at the time. That's when we got moved there. We start discovering we've got some mutual, not together, but mutual kind of experiences with, I use the word Sasquatchy. And
we did not get to any of that because I know that our resident Bigfoot expert and special correspondent Jeff Hubbard, who is unfortunately can't be with us today. But he wanted to hear these particular stories. So
yay.
Yeah.
Well, we have a few of them.
Cool.
Starts there in Alabama.
When my brother started working with me at my dad's place, that we rebuilt locomotives and worked on the railroad and stuff. And we started talking about stuff, and he goes, Dad and I saw a Bigfoot one time. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, I was taking Dad to Atlanta Airport. He said, we were just right in the middle of like the Talladega Forest, National Forest there between Birmingham and Atlanta. And he said he's sitting there, or they're driving. He's driving. Dad's in the passenger seat. And this is early in the morning. The sun was just rising. He said it was not a lot of people, cars out on the highway or anything. He says they see what they thought was like a guy sitting on the side of the road with a backpack on. Mm-hmm. And he said all of a sudden they get a little closer, and he said it stands up. He said it was probably 7-8 foot tall, huge, hairy, and as they passed by it, they said it locked eyes on them.
Wow.
And kind of turned and like 2-3 steps into the woods.
Slowly.
Wow.
Dang.
That was pretty crazy. I was like, and my dad won't talk about it. Dad, you know, he just kind of, he didn't deny it, but he just doesn't,
doesn't go there.
Doesn't go there.
That's when you know something's for real. When people don't want to talk about it.
Well, if I might then, with that kind of vein of thought, my Sasquatchy experience was all invisible. So for our friend that is interested in this subject, this may be extremely disappointing. But I have to tell you, I went through it with a friend. Chad was asleep in our house in bed. We had another friend who was asleep on the couch, just inside the living room, inside the French glass doors of this house.
This friend was also the one that was with us the night of the abduction.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
that word.
Okay, Amy, what's her name? Amy, was that?
Christina, I think is how we changed her name.
Okay, I don't know where I got Amy from, but
It sounded good.
We'll take it. Well, you're right. So she happened to be, this was my birthday. I have weirdness with my birthday, which is in May, I might add, coming up. She had I had 2 girlfriends fly in from different parts of the country, one out of New York City and one out of North Carolina at the time. And they were coming to spend a few days with us to help me celebrate my birthday. Yay. It was perfect. So she happened to be the one asleep on the couch, just next to these purposeful for this information glass doors, French glass doors that went out into our backyard. Okay, so this particular house that we were buying, this was in the middle of no man's land, Alabama. Not far, actually, really very close to the Talladega National Forest area, which is where Chad was saying that being encounter took place with his dad and his brother on the highway. So we had spent the day out, and I'm honest to admit, we ain't no angels. We'd spent the day out on a boat. Somebody had, loaned us a boat, and these girls are a lot younger than I am, a lot prettier, and really bathing suit oriented. Not me, but I love the water, and so Chad it's a dirty job. Somebody's got to do it. Having to take care of a bunch of girls out on this boat.
Oh, poor Chad.
Yeah, it's just a dirty job, and so we spent the day. My point is, we spent the day eating, drinking, and being merry throughout the day.
Yeah.
Well, we had also, as we left the party lake, went to a restaurant, had a big old meal, big steak dinner, and it wasn't like we stayed just drunk and unconscious. None of us were. So we get home somewhere around that crazy 11 hour. It seems like 11 is pretty prime time. It seems like in so many encounters, and especially in ours.
Uh-huh.
We get home. Well, Chad, at that time we had a Great Dane and a black half rot, half Doberman. And so small ponies is my point.
Yeah.
That's real.
So they had their prospective beds right next to our bedroom door, one on one side. They were just amazing. And so Chad had enough of the girls. He went to bed. So he goes to sleep. Our friend, she lays down on the couch. She'd had enough party. She just goes out. My other friend and I decide to do something we'd never done before, which is let's go upstairs on the deck and let's sky watch. Let's star watch. That was weird. Hadn't done it before. Okay. So we get up there, trying to speed the story along. It seems to take me forever. We both instantly had an experience. We both let out little kitty glees like, wow, woohoo, whatever. She saw something dance across the sky one direction. I saw it the other. And then for whatever, as bizarre as all the rest of the story is going to sound, we decided, well, that's enough. Let's go to bed. Well, that's just bizarre. I'm too excited. So the idea that I would just want to go to bed makes no sense.
Sure.
But what is it that you saw dance across the sky?
Well, I've never seen stars do it.
Okay.
Again, there was a zigzaggy, and so whatever it was
was a light.
Was a orbish white.
Okay.
That's because it happened so fast.
Yeah.
Thank you. Light.
Okay.
It happened. Her view direction in the sky happened to her instantly. I was looking the other direction. Happened to me almost instantly.
Wow.
So just bizarre, like all the rest of it. So we decide we're going to go down the steps of the deck to the backyard and come in through those glass doors. Okay. So that's what we do. And our house had a small incline. Down at the bottom of that small hill was a foresty area or woods, small woods. It hadn't been cleaned or settled yet, and it was perfect. So as we got to the bottom of the steps and stepped out onto that yard at the base of that incline, the only way I know how to describe it, because I've had people just absolutely shut down to me when I've tried to share this. Mm-hmm. It was one of the most mortifying, terrifying experiences of my life. So there's nothing fun about what I'm describing.
Okay.
The only way I can describe it is it was Sasquatch yells, hollers, screams, because I've done a lot of study on how they are recorded and how they sound.
Right.
There were so many, I can't count them, but I could hear every one of them individually inside me, not just audibly. This was going on inside of us.
Wow.
Now we're becoming beyond terrified, beyond words. It's all invisible. It's coming up from behind us like a wave, an invisible wave of these insane sounds. And if people don't know what they sound like, listen to those recordings and put so many together. I mean, there's no way to describe it. So we are hustling just as, I don't even remember going up that hill. But what I do know is when we got to the top of the hill, to the doors, to those French glass doors, she had her hand on the doorknob. Now I'm to the left of her, just a few feet. I remember very distinctly that we're dead. That was my next thought: is we're dead.
Wow.
There's no way to survive because that is now on top of us.
Right.
That wave of invisible sound was on us. So I knew instantly we were dead. And then the next thing, I look over to my right at her. She's an effing deer in headlights. She's beyond mortified. Now her eyes are the size of saucers. Her hand is on that doorknob, and I know telepathically, I don't know what else to call it. She's not gonna open the doors. She's going to bolt through those glass doors. Right. And something, this is again so effing creepy, bizarre to repeat, something made me say to her, "You will stand in it," in a commanding voice that was my voice. But I guarantee I don't talk like that. And it was not me. And I don't know what else it was. But as soon as I did that, she stopped. She was not making any more move. And then, as if an invisible hand above my head turned off a switch, it was done. It was so silent. It was so silent. You could feel it. You could taste the silence.
Man, that is intense.
Oh my God, it was unbelievable. I've never heard an account like this, and I've heard a lot of crazy accounts. I couldn't get people in the fields of either UFOs, aliens, whatever they want to call all that language, people in Bigfoot world. I could not get anybody to listen to me or to care.
Sorry.
No.
I wonder if it was in something, not in the UFO or alien or Bigfoot world, but if it was something, spiritual, if it was some kind of, like a haunting or some kind of, something there in that area that was just, because it sounds like, it sounds like it, I don't know. It seems to me that's what the kind of thing that I'm getting, that is something that, because it is mostly invisible and it seems like it has some kind of energy about it. Otherwise, it seems like that it makes me wonder if it is a some kind of spiritual attack or some kind of ghost demon type thing. I don't know.
Well, that's a wonderful theory, possibility, certainly something to be considered like all. And with that said, feels to me, if you're up for this, I'd have Chad share with you an experience that falls very much on the vein of thought. I'm thinking of what you just said about this maybe spiritual haunting, who knows, all that language. I'll also insert for anybody who's not aware, folks, please also remember there is a place in Alabama called Huntsville, Alabama, that is NASA. That has been a huge issue to me, it seems like, for many years over our experiences. So just all keep in mind, NASA is also there, a couple hours away.
Sure.
But if you might, I'd like to share with you, when Chad and I first moved to Alabama in 2001, if we didn't share this before, we went on we've only done it once because I think I was bored. Coming out of the French Quarter, all of a sudden I'm in beautiful Alabama and it's gorgeous and quiet. And I decided, let's get involved in a ghosty hunt. Well, I had never done nothing like that before either. It wasn't like we hadn't had crazy enough experiences. So I'll frame this and then have Chad share with you what we discovered in that experience. Keep in mind, we only did it once.
Right.
I find this female. She's a team of one who is a photographer who's putting her little ghosty group together. She hears we're out of New Orleans. She talked to me over the phone, finds out about the orbduction. We hadn't done anything about a book or anything. This was in 2001.
Right.
So she invites us to meet her in small town No Place, Alabama, much smaller than where we lived. Now, we're newbies. We don't know where we are. And this was in 2001, please keep in mind. And so we meet her out in the middle of no man's land. And she gets out of her pick-em-up truck, and she's got her tripods and her cameras and all that fancy equipment. And we're at an old, looks like an old small lake, but kind of funky, or pond, big pond, whatever. And old trailers have been placed around it. And it also has apparently an old church that I was creeped the F out of in connecting to that place. That was and then we learned for good reason. But when she asked me to go up into that trailer and whatever I could detect. Well, I did it. I sure did. I felt and I understood that there had been somebody who died in that trailer, and I took her exactly to where she already knew the history on it. I didn't know nothing. Chad didn't know nothing. I wasn't trying to be a ghosty show. We were just trying to, I don't know, like I said, being silly and bored. She discovers that I apparently can do whatever I can do, and I pointed out that death took place and, showed her exactly where it happened. I think it was on a couch in the living room or something or other. Well, come to find out that was an old woman, an old grandma who died there. Oh, and wow. her family that were all tentacles of that area had their homes and their grandchildren and then their grandchildren. Chad, you pick it back up, if you will, from there about us meeting. The old grandma's granddaughter, who was probably close to 30 at that point.
Yeah, so we're talking with the granddaughter, and she said that right after the grandma dies, that there's just all this weird stuff starts happening in the house. So she starts reading out of Revelations, out of the Bible, out on the porch. Now, she's got her boyfriend and another guy there. And, these guys are, big, tough biker dudes, big guys. And she said all of a sudden something grabs her hair, pulls her down on the ground, on the deck there, on the porch. Yeah, this invisible force pulls her down, and it's pulling her hair. She's got like this long blonde hair, and it's pulling her across the porch, like off the porch. The guys grab her feet, and they're like doing tug of war with her, and they're losing. I'm not really sure. I think it finally let go of her, and they got her back into the house, and and then we were talking to her son later on that day, and he's like 8, 9, 10 years old, and you can always tell when most of the time you can tell when kids make something up but he said that he's sitting out on the the porch one day.
In a very serious voice.
Yeah, he was very serious. And he's kind of just looking over the rail. And he said, all of a sudden, this thing came out from underneath the porch. He said it looked like a monkey, but it was like green and scaly like a lizard. Ooh. So we call it the monkey lizard. He says it starts walking, it's on all fours, and it starts walking towards the woods, and it stops, just like, a few yards away. He said that it stops and just kind of looks back at him and then turns its head, takes a couple more steps, and just disappears.
Whoa.
Gone.
That's weird. The only thing I've ever heard similar to that kind of a that kind of a weird lizard thing would be the lizard man that's in South Carolina, the one that's you hear about legends about the South Carolina lizard man.
Right.
And it's very similar kind of environment there in South Carolina and Alabama.
Yeah.
So
wow.
I don't know. Hey everybody, you're listening to the What's Your Weird Story podcast. You probably knew that already because you're listening or downloaded to the episode off of your iTunes or your Spotify or whatever place you get your podcast from. We want to thank you for listening. We also want to remind you to like us, follow us, subscribe to us, make sure that you get your new podcast episode every week. We'd also like to ask you to rate and review so that we can grow our audience, we can have more friends, we can have more stories. So thanks for listening to What's Your Weird Story.
This little boy says this to us. I look at Chad. Now the dudes, boyfriend and his buddy, these biker dudes, they're sitting in the living room, small house. They're sitting in the living room. They're glued to the television. They're watching the weather. They're glued. Now, that little boy had come out of his room and shared that story with Chad and Alta. And Alta says to Chad very silently, let's get the flock out of Dodge. We are in over our head. We have no business being involved in any of this because we'd already had some other experiences with some other family members that there was no question about it, that if there was such a thing as the word haunting, they were absolutely haunted all the way.
Right.
And it felt menacing. And so we ain't stupid. I mean, so I'm trying to tell Chad, okay, well, he's not arguing with me. As we go past these dudes watching the weather, we're now becoming aware, just because it's like every freaking weather siren went off in the heavens around us when we came out of that house and got in our car. And as we're driving, it had a small little pickup at the time, I think. As we're driving out of this community that we have no idea where we are, again, I can't make it up. The skies turned, to me, black. They are not, but, I mean, it's changing instantly, and we are surrounded in tornadoes. Surrounded.
Yeah. Wow.
Now, we finally, Chad, you pick it back up, if you will.
I kind of got lost for a second because, this
not
was
a good time.
Yeah, this was, before I had, the phones with the GPS and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of knew I was going in the right direction, but I wasn't really sure. And finally I'd stopped and I'm like, I was going kind of the wrong way. So I finally get on track. We get maybe 20 minutes from home, and all of a sudden we see these two girls running towards us down the highway. And we're like, what's going on? Yeah, there's 2 or 3 other cars that were stopped. But apparently, if we would have been just a little bit faster or a little bit sooner, this tornado it went across the highway, imploded this house. And so we sat there for a while. The police, the fire department, all that. Everybody shows up. We sit there for a while and we're like, should we keep on driving? Do we stay here? Yeah. So finally we sat there for a little while and we're like, let's just get on home. Let's just get on home.
Yeah.
Just give it our best. Well, that was our one and only ghosty hunting experience. We have some other Sasquatchy experiences that took place out of Alabama. Once we got on the road, 2012, we bought an older motorhome and traveled the Ohio Valley. We had some very interesting experiences with that area that we could get to or talk about as well.
Yeah.
But I was trying to think of, mostly Alabama was a very strange, interesting experience for me on so many levels because I'm not from the South.
Right.
And then having, these kinds of things happening that are, I don't know what it's bordering line on, with it being very all Baptist, Southern Baptist, and very strict and ritual. I don't know because I came from a different world.
Right.
So, not sure what the take on all of it is. We just know at that point we were in over our heads, and we were grateful to get home that day. And then our experiences, we then started buying our home that I spoke about, where the invisible stuff was happening in the backyard. I'd like to also mention, in the same vein of thought, about this being spiritual or haunting or what have you. Also in that same backyard. Now, this would have happened in probably about 2000, I'm kind of losing my sense of time here. Probably about 2004 or 2005, right around the period of Katrina, I think, that took place in 2005. So in this experience, once again, it's just happening to me. Lucky me. Oh, sorry. Let me mention real quickly. I'm sorry I'm jumping around, but that invisible Sasquatchy experience, this was the other thing that was so mind-blowing to me that I took note of instantly and have never forgotten. It was almost like we were released. As I said, it was an invisible hand above my head seemed to turn off a switch. And whatever that was all about just went away. And so she kind of almost collapsed into my arms because I'm like reaching for her. And it's almost like she came back. That's the only way how to describe that. And the friend. So as we get inside the house, first thing I'm taking note of is my dogs were snoring. My husband was snoring. Our friend is snoring. But did I mention our dogs are snoring?
Yeah.
Now, those sounds were so loud that small community, we were convinced, had to have heard it.
Yeah.
It was that loud. And it wasn't just, as I said, the audible loud. It was what was happening inside of us.
Right.
I don't know if you ever had that kind of an experience where you felt it inside you.
That's what makes me think that it might be something that is more of a spiritual nature, because it didn't, and your dogs would perk up if they heard, any kind of animal outside, whether it's, a raccoon that you can't hear, or a possum, or a mouse, or a mouse, or whatever. But if you hear a chorus of Yetis, I mean, that the dogs will be, making their own corresponding, cacophony back at them. So that's what makes me think that, again, that maybe this is something, I don't know, because it seems so much that it was so much internal on you, where it's, with the sensations and everything. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't experience it, so I can't really say one way or the other.
Right. I can't. Well, I've tried forever. There's no answers for us, not me. And it just, the possibilities just seem so big and growing. Yeah. So what I was mentioning now we're in 2004, 5-ish, somewhere in there. It's Chad and I and those dogs, same dogs that are in the house. And it's nighttime. We've gone to bed. Everything is normal, whatever that means. We've had a nice supper and spent some time probably watching television, and off to bed we go. Chad and I have never had kids. So the puppies have always been our babies, and everybody goes to bed, and that's what I remember. And next thing I know, I have no idea what time it is, but I just know it's pitch black outside. I'm no longer in bed. I'm now standing out in my backyard. I'm standing right at those French glass doors area right there. And I am outside. First thing I'm aware of, and I'm aware, there is something like a cousin it Is the only way I know how to describe it. It makes me giggle every time I think about it. Like to the left of me, and it's hitting me about knee thigh high. It's not touching me, and it's dark out. So I first try to imagine I'm asleep. I'm not a walker. I've never heard any reports of Alta ever sleepwalking, ever. So I'm standing there and I'm conscious. I think I'm conscious, and I got this being, something right next to me that now I want to know what is. It feels like Cousin It.
Yeah.
Right.
About the time I'm trying to zero in on that, I'm not allowed to, because above me and up in the sky, above me and somewhat to my left, not too much, is a female voice that's coming out of the sky. The voice it's her. And that's how I describe her. Mm-hmm. The her is that female that's on the back of our book.
Right.
That description.
Wow.
That tone, I know. When I first encountered her, or whatever happened to me, she spoke to me in English. But in this experience, she's speaking, because that's her, or at least that's that voice that I want to crawl up into. I want to get up off the ground and go see her.
Right.
And but it's not in English. It's not a language I understand, and I'm pretty good with languages. I have no idea what was being spoken to me.
Wow.
But it had my attention instantly, obviously, and I've got my head cranked back as far as I can do it. Then the next thing I know is I'm, just so happy that it's her above me and to the right of me a bit, high up in the sky, coming out of the sky, is a male voice. Mm-hmm. Now, this one's in English, and he called me by name, and he was not nice at all. And I like to describe it as he sounded like a pissed off daddy. Mm-hmm. Like I was a bad girl and I'm in trouble. And I remember the language was very distinct and very specific. And he said in the shittiest of tone, "Don't bother being afraid." Like, don't even bother. He didn't say it.
Wow.
But his words were, "Don't bother." And the moment that language registered with me, my wrist exploded without any pain at all, no pain at all, no blood, no nothing like that, nothing gory. It's the only way I know how to describe it, though. It exploded what I call a burst of light. And I like to say if a light bomb exists, it was like one went off in my wrist. And with no pain or association, any kind of feeling, just visual. And that happened, and the moment that was happening, then the next thing I know, it's the next morning, and I'm in bed. I'm put back in bed. When I woke up, I didn't come to this time. I literally woke up. I remember waking Chad up and making it clear to him that this had happened to me, and that I had another object in my wrist. I call them unknowns.
You call it what? What was that?
I call them unknowns.
Okay.
Right.
People like the word implants. I never have.
Right.
So in my case, that's my reference. So that took place in that same spot.
Wow.
So okay, so just I want to confirm, because so you went to bed and then you wake up and you're at the glass doors again, where the last kind of attack took place, right?
That's right.
Do you think now, because that makes me think that the first attack, I'm going to back up on my spiritual attack of it and go to say that then maybe it was more of this abduction, a second abduction or third, or whoever knows how many that you've been through. Maybe it is connected to that or another group that has come by and we're attempting something. I don't know, but it does seem to be now, because of all the other things where the dogs didn't wake and Chad didn't wake and all these other things, and you've been targeted especially, and you hear the familiar voice and you're seeing all these other high strangeness things in the second part, but it's also got that same kind of stuff. It seems to me then that definitely these two are connected to the other, to the woman, the aliens, or the abductors, or whatever they are.
Right.
Well, there's also the belief that UFOs and Bigfoot. They're what's the plural of Bigfoot? Is it Bigfoot?
Sasquatch. Sasquatches.
Yeah.
Or Sasquatchy.
Sasquatchies.
Yeah.
But that
Like Wolfie boys.
right. But that they often coincide one another.
Mm-hmm.
So UFO sightings coincide with Bigfoot sightings, and that's what it. When you said that, you saw the flash or the dancing of the stars or whatever. That kind of made me think of that too. It's like maybe that was somehow, playing in this, and it's pretty crazy, pretty fascinating.
Right. I mean, just
The other thing I wanted to say too, speaking about how you felt like this tone, this sound was resonating with you, low frequencies, and the military's done a lot of research in sound, and they're able to dial in certain frequencies to manipulate people. Basically is what it is, and it's.
I speak about it often.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But low frequencies can really do some strange things to your body. And it can. They've done research on when people listen to music in a live setting with a full PA system. It does something to the chemistry of your body. It releases hormones in your brain, and it floods the system in some way that is different than even listening to music with headphones on, because you're exposed to the full frequency range.
Right.
And so whatever it is that you heard, maybe I'm thinking that, it could have been some wide ranges of frequencies that were penetrating. I know that sounds it sounds crazy, but
not to us.
But when you go and you listen to a band and they've got a great PA, and the whole thing is just like making your body just pulsate. Right. It makes you feel good. I think that's why people enjoy live music, and hopefully we can get back there to that someday. But and
I'm raised in a native background with regalia as a dancer, a traditional dancer with my mom who made drums.
Right.
So, we understand exactly what you're saying.
And I used to run sound for bands. I was a front of house engineer for a long time, and there's nothing like having control over a sound system that sounds amazing and you can physically feel the music. There's just something to that. There's something that changes you. So I when you said that, that's kind of what I thought about. It's like, man, maybe what she was hearing was at such a volume and such a resonance. Those low frequencies, you can really get down in there, and subharmonic frequencies also that you can't necessarily pick up with the ear. That's what dogs hear. Dogs hear above 20K, which is ridiculous. I mean, no human can hear in that range, but that's what they hear. So when you have the dog whistle and they respond to the dog whistle, that's what they're hearing. They're hearing something that we can't hear. And sometimes, like elephants, they talk to each other in those subharmonic frequencies that we can't hear through the ground. Mm-hmm. They speak to each other that way. So a lot of stuff going on that we can't really detect. So that's just another curveball.
And I mentioned one more time also, because the memory is just so specific, was to feel a wave, felt it.
Right.
It was so powerful that you could feel that rolling up at you. Yeah. Like literally like an ocean wave.
Right.
Yeah.
Like an earthquake, something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nothing under the foot, just everything going on around. And that sound was very specialized. It was all encompassing. That's
intense. That is intense, man.
Yeah.
And if you never heard them holler or scream or yell, oh man, just to hear one.
Right.
It's just, and again, I'm telling you, there were so many in the past when I tried to interview on this and people just laughed and scoffed at me. My first words were, I'm swearing on my mother 1 million at least. Yeah. And I heard every one of them individually, and that's impossible.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So when I say the numbers were so big you couldn't count them, I couldn't.
When they say,
Yeah.
often people will say what you hear when it's recorded doesn't give it any. It's not like being there.
Right.
when you're there and you're hearing it.
Doesn't have that power.
Yeah, it's different than when you're. So I can understand that.
Oh boy,
That's wild.
one of the few times in my life that I'm aware of that I have memory of where I knew I was dead.
Right.
And, you hear people say that all the time, but until you've experienced, you're dead.
Yeah.
Because when that wave got on top of us, I was shocked I still had consciousness. Let me just say that.
Right.
It was
Wow.
so that took place, which has always left the puzzling again about her, hearing her. If I'd have just turned a pissed off daddy up in the skies, I'd have just chalked that up to, well, this is just. And what was the cousin it standing next to me
Right.
being? What was that all about?
Again, high strangeness. It's these weird things that happen. That there's a lot of it there's no explanation. We can't rationalize. We can't put it together because, your mind is getting overwhelmed with what is happening, and so you're translating everything the best you can. And because your circuits are just going all over the place, and it's like a lot of people who who have been a lot of people have been abducted. When they talk about grays, they talk about giant owls and and how they are connected, because that's how your brain is transcribing it or trying to understand, filtering the information, and it's like your brain is filtering this information the best that it can, and then there's something whatever that is, that's what it gave you, as well inside you. So
again, in that same backyard, so when that period of time we were living there, Chad was the real wage earner for both of us. I stayed at home, tried to work outside of my home as much as I could, but for the most part, Chad was in the locomotive business with his family, and so he's gone all the time. So during the day, I'm sitting up there on that deck by myself, having my coffee, morning time. Those woods. Now later on, they got a lot of it cleared out, I think, and trailer got moved back there with a woman and children. Little family kind of changed. It seems like a lot, but in the time up until that happened, those were still small woods behind us that I had direct visual of. So I'm sitting up on the deck, and I'm up in my little high chair and having my coffee, and all of a sudden, the only way I know how to describe it is I had a hoot barker coming out of those woods. And I'm not even kidding you, and I've heard this many times from many folks who understand about that owl connection with, as they call it, the grays and these aliens. This was an owl that was not an owl, and it was, there's no doubt to me, because there would be different tones of that particular hoot barking, and it was almost telepathic. I got on the phone long distance to a girlfriend that had come to stay with me, not those two we spoke about earlier. This was another friend from childhood who I discovered 40 years after we had been apart. We got reunited for a minute, and she reminded me that we had UFO stuff happening to us collectively as children, as teenagers in Flagstaff, Arizona in particular, on a summer vacation with my parents. So she's taken me all the way back into places I got no memory of. Wow. Now they're kind of coming back to me. So I'm telling her all about, what's happening to me on this property here in Alabama. And of course she's hearing what's happened in Louisiana, so on. So I'm telling her that there's no doubt to me that I got somebody in these woods that's playing with me. And so I'd call her up long distance. I'd put her on speakerphone, and I'd make sure to hold that phone up. And it would be so consistent that not only was I hearing it, but she was hearing it. We were laughing our asses off. It was hysterical. It was as if something forgot how to bark, and it would hoot. And then it would, like it forgot how to hoot, and it would bark. And so it became my hoot barker. But I'm telling you again, it was all coming out of that little wooded area that was very bizarre to me anyhow.
Wow.
Yeah. And she was my proof. I always felt like, that's been the hardest part, is needing witnesses.
Hey man, did I ever tell you about this recent thing that happened to me? I was driving around in the country and it was just after dusk. So there's a little bit of light still coming on out of the sky, but it was mostly dark. I saw this black school bus.
I don't think I've ever heard this.
Okay, so I saw this black school bus. All the windows were tinted and it started following me for about 15 minutes.
Whoa, no.
Yeah.
What did you do?
I was at work. I was making deliveries and I just kept making my deliveries and like it would even stop and wait for me. And but it was never close enough to where I could see it or anything, but it was following me, man.
Wow. Dang.
That's just an example of another really weird story that happened to me and that could have happened to you. You don't have to have a UFO encounter. You don't have to have seen the ghost of your grandmother. You don't have to know what Bigfoot smells like to have had a weird story. Basically, what we're saying is weird covers a lot of ground here on the What's Your Weird Story podcast. And we love hearing all of your stories, whether they're spooky, they're funny, they're bizarre, or they're just short, sweet, and unexplained. Kind of like our podcast.
So I'm trying to think if there's more. I'm sure there's lots of Alabama stuff, but just keeping in vein of the course of what was happening to Chad and Alta. Well, so we'll speak about Serpent Mound right now then, because we're just kind of on that journey, if it's okay with y'all.
Yeah.
To in the motorhome, those 5 years we spent traveling the Ohio Valley, we didn't have near as many experiences as I would think one would think, knowing some of our history. But what we did have, very profound, like to me, like what took place on top of that little mountain in Ohio. We go to Serpent Mound and we're vendors. So we spend the weekend there vendoring our wares. And then we had a young couple that weren't married, no kids between them either, kind of could come and go as they pleased, that wanted to come and spend the weekend with us. They live in Cincinnati. Isn't that where you are? Aren't you in Cincinnati,
No,
sir?
they're in Columbus.
Yep. I'm in.
Oh, they're in Columbus.
Yeah, which is also about 2 hours away from me. So,
right. So they decide they're going to come. We want them. We love these people. They love us. They're going to come and spend the weekend with us. And so thus they did. And so Chad.
Yeah, we're sitting there.
It's just the four of us.
Well, yeah, we're in the motorhome. We're just sitting there talking. I think we'd just gotten through eating and stuff.
Maybe having drinks.
Yeah, maybe having drinks. And
now, dude didn't drink at all.
Yes,
at all.
Drink at all.
She and I and Chad have no problem with that.
Yeah. Well, we drink. She kind of had the door open because she was smoking a cigarette. So she's kind of halfway in, halfway out the door. Mm-hmm. And she goes, all of a sudden she goes, "Did y'all see that?"
Right.
We're like, "No, you're in the doorway. We're inside,
we're in a closet."
Right. She's like, "Oh my God, something just went through across the sky, crazy."
Right.
So we all come running out of,
and we all
sitting there. And I mean, this went on for hours.
All night.
It would
for Chad and Alta and that couple.
Yeah, it was not just straight, like a satellite would go. It was zigzagging and making curves and
from one horizon to another.
Yeah, and at one point I saw something kind of in the cloud kind of thing, and it looked like a craft. I mean, it was huge and way.
And because it was going on for hours, all four of us seemed to be having our own individualized experiences, which I've discovered is not unusual at all either.
Right. Because, I mean, we were just looking all in different directions, stop. And it was.
We finally got bored and went in.
Right. Well,
not bored, but we were exhausted.
Right. And now, was that the night that we played with fire?
Right.
And
so listen to this weirdness.
Our friend
Chad, my Chad. Who is he?
She's really into like martial arts and everything like that. So she's half
Vietnamese and American father, and then she's in black belt and literally
and all of it.
She looks like a movie star that's got all those abilities.
Yeah.
So that's her world.
Her and I, we're sitting real close to the campfire. just kind of one on one side of the fire, one on the other. We're sitting in chairs, and
her
Alta,
boyfriend and I are just watching, and
she goes, "I'm going to put out the fire." So she does this like really weird thing with her hands above the fire,
that we've never seen before,
and it goes out. So I'm like, "Well, I'm going to make it come back up." And I took my hands and kind of like did a sweeping motion from, ground up, kind of a.
It did it.
And it started again.
Like somebody turned on a switch.
We did this 4 or 5 times.
It was nuts.
It was really weird.
Wow.
It was nuts.
Alta and our friend, the guy friend, they were just over there looking at us like.
Well, his mouth was wide open.
This is crazy.
This
weird.
is crazy. Because literally that fire would come all the way up, not just a little ember. And then it would go all the way down to just these embers. And I'm like, this is weird.
Wild. That's wild.
Because from that moment on, then we had this night display for all 4 of us. Like something very private seemed to be happening. And this was a park we'd never been in before that we'd normally never stay in. It's kind of it's kind of a Disneyland sort of park.
Kid friendly. It had water slides.
Yeah, we don't have kids.
Go-karts.
Yeah. We go to work, not necessarily to play, if you will, and just like it quiet and so on. So it's not our normal, which was interesting, not at all our normal place we'd be hanging out. And so we're packed in pretty good, is my point. There's a lot of motorhomes, a lot of RVs in this park. And I'm just telling you, for what I remember about that night, it didn't seem that anybody else in that park was watching a whole sky array as the 4 of us. It was crazy.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Wow.
So, and what part where was that? What part of Ohio was that?
Serpent Mound.
It was right around.
It was right around Serpent Mound? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Because Serpent Mound,
Serpent
Mound is a hugely spiritual place, and I went to it on a whim one day. I was coming back from I forget where I was coming back from, but I saw that there was the exit for Spirit Mound, and I was like, well, Spirit Mound, I'm going to go. And so I took the little detour off, and 20 minutes off or something like that. And you go there, and it's just, there's something, it resonates with something human. It resonates with, at the very bare minimum, with human history, and that humans did this conscious thing. They made these things, and then you get up, you look at it on the ground, and you just see these hills, but then you climb up this rickety watchtower thing, which and I mean, I'm not. I don't like. I don't like stairs that don't have. That I can see through. I don't like stairs that I can see through. I don't like things that I can look down and see through and see the ground and get higher up and still do that. So I kind of have a bit of of that, and so I was getting a little bit of vertigo, but I shaking legs all the way to the top. Oh boy. And like took a quick picture and then and came down, but like it's really impressive, and I urge anybody to check it out. Any kind of earthworks like that, the pre-Columbian and way pre-Columbus types of stuff, because I mean, there was so much going on on this continent before Columbus. I mean, other Europeans had come over, but before, people from everywhere had come over, Right. I mean, we know that now. That's history. It's, it's not the U.S. history. It's actual world history, but still. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's something about the Spirit Mounds that, like, there's stuff going on around there anyway, and that's the reason why those exist there, because there's something going on. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, with the going-ons around the country, then we'll move out of the Ohio. I'll go backwards a little bit. Before we got the motorhome, one of our first adventures, because we had never really gone to too much UFO stuff, conferences or anything like that. So we had an opportunity to attend one up in Wisconsin. That was, I think, the furthest north I remember us traveling. And we didn't have the motorhome at the time, so we're in a pickup and we've got our girls and we're pulling a trailer of our wares. Well, this place is Burlington, Wisconsin. So it's not a very big town. It's pretty small, quite beautiful. And what takes place there is this gal had been putting this conference on for several years, and she invites some big names in that UFO field. One of them be Stanton Friedman,
Right.
who's kind of the biggest name in the world, bless his heart, now that he's moved on. And another huge name for people who know anything about any of this stuff, Daryl Sims. And he's all about, the implant language and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And a couple other fairly big names, Betty and Barney Hill, if those names mean anything
Oh,
to
wow.
you.
Yeah, those mean a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So not the couple, because they both passed on, but
Right.
Betty's niece, her name's Kathleen Marden, I believe is her name. That's Betty's niece. Well, she became the inheritor of all of that story. So
Right.
she's given it all she's got, traveling the country and the world, all about that story, and then a whole lot more. So these are the names at this little teeny, when I say teeny, it was a teeny little conference, teeny. And in fact, there wasn't even a conference room. It was just bizarre. It was like a social, like a gathering of, let's have lunch or a tea or something. It was very strange and beautiful because it wasn't all the insanity of, I guess, what these conferences have often turned into. Okay, so we do our vendoring. She owned it looks like a shop of some kind.
So she
Help me, Chad.
had a sci-fi cafe, and then she had kind of
Across the street.
and then across the street she had just kind of rented this. Yeah, she rented this old boutique just to have a place for the vendors and
For us to sell our wares.
sell our wares, and Freeman with his books and
Right. So we're over there at the boutique, whatever, selling our wares, right along with Friedman, so on, all and the big names. And then Daryl Sims and a few of the other folks, they're over at the cafe, the Sci-Fi Cafe. Well, apparently that's where they do a lot of the gatherings when they wanted to have conference kind of language. That particular night, I'm building this up, on that particular night, they decided, the owner, her name's Mary Sutherland. She takes folks out into the woods outside of town for these spiritual walkabouts where everybody photographs and they capture all kinds of. She takes them out there for the purpose of finding portals. This is all the language.
Okay.
Sorry, Chad?
Vortex something is what she called it, I think.
Okay, I'm stumbling over language, but just to get to the point about this, more high strangeness involving Chad and Alta in particular. So on this particular night, she wants everybody to go out into the boonies and have this, stargazing experience. Well, I happen to get, once again, reunited with another childhood friend from 40 years prior, not the one I spoke about earlier, this other one. She lived in Iowa. She decided to drive from Iowa to Wisconsin to come to this conference and for us to reunite. It was so amazing. Just a gift. And so while she's there, we're in an old hotel place. There's nothing like a mom and pop hotel, whatever, nothing fancy by any means. So that's good enough for us. I've taken all my photos and we're having a reunion. Her and I were sitting in her motel room. So I opted out not to go because she wasn't interested either. We were tired and just wanted to have time to reunite about not going to that stargazing thing. Well, Chad, for some reason, opted out of it also, which is weird. He chose to stay behind, but he was over at the cafe with all the others that didn't go. And so, if I'm not mistaken, weren't they radioing? Weren't they
Yeah, he was doing a podcast. Rick was.
Somebody there was doing a podcast apparently at the same time. So Chad decided to hang out with them. Right about the time that my friend, she wouldn't mind me saying her name. I call her Tiny Heine. I named her Tiny Heine a long time ago. And so Tiny Heine and I are sitting on the floor in the motel room, in her room, I got all my pictures pulled out from, the billions of years we haven't seen each other. And all of a sudden she says to me, Alta, wouldn't it be strange? Wouldn't it be weird, speaking of, if they were right up above us? Now, I knew what she meant by they because she'd also had experiences with craft on the ground when she's a child. So my friends, interestingly enough, I discover all these years later, are experiencers also. So anyhow, she says, and I'm like, wouldn't it though? And I look up above the door, the entrance into our room, and Chad comes flying in out of nowhere. And now he wouldn't have just bounced in, but he's pretty freaking excited. And the reason he's all excited is he's reporting to us they are there. They are being captured by all this crowd. There's like 30 of them out in those woods that are filming them right above us, literally right above us. And in this experience, you could see, and it made world news. This little town hit the map. And you can look all this up. It's all, it's all filmed. The video is there. You can see the video as it's happening. But as it's happening, one of the things that they discover is there is a true, my word, and I think their word, portal that seems to be opening up in the sky, and this craft is coming in and out of it. And I mean, it's just mind-blowing.
Wow.
The whole thing, mind-blowing.
Wow.
And this is happening. And again, I have to tell you, call me egotistical, far from it. But I just felt, again, like Chad and I and my friend having this reunion, we were having a moment.
Yeah.
Right.
It just felt so personal again. And of course, probably not, but who knows? I mean, that crowd of 30 were far from disappointed. She's got stuff on film nobody's got.
Wow.
So you might want to check that out. That was in 2012.
Okay.
Burlington Vortex Conference, I think.
Okay.
That's what it's called. And it's just real interesting.
Wow.
We were right there.
Wow.
Just having our own very personal experience.
That's really cool.
So
that's really cool.
a place in Wisconsin, and then Chad, others. Can you think of others on the road?
Oh,
or
not that I can. That really.
I doubt so much. Everybody's so kind to just be still hanging in here with me.
Hey, that's a nice t-shirt you got on there.
Oh, thanks, dude. It's brand new. Do you like that? It's one of the official What's Your Weird Story t-shirts.
Where'd you get that?
It's funny that you ask. I just got it off the brand new spreadshirt.com site for the What's Your Weird Story podcast. There's no www. You just go straight to shop.spreadshirt.com/what's without the apostrophe WHATS -WEIRD-STORY, and that'll take you right there.
I mean, you can never own enough clothing.
Well, it's true, Barry. There's t-shirts for the ladies because, they're cut differently. There's hoodies, which are really cool. There's two different kinds of hoodies, and there's also tote bags, so you can tote your stuff.
That's so cool, man.
So if you guys go out to spreadshirt.com, What's Your Weird Story, currently there are 2 designs, but there will be more going up very soon. So just keep your eyes out for that. And if you decide to get one of our shirts, tag yourself on Instagram to ours or Facebook. Show your love. Show us what you got. Let's see your true colors.
The friend that met Chad and I up in Wisconsin, Tiny Heiny, her story is, and I'm a lot more blank on this one because it was so hectic when we were getting connected that I love questions and I love to ask them. And I just don't remember if I did, but she claims that she's driving. I have left. I've been gone now, that area. It sounds like it's within that year or so, just like my other friend of me leaving. She says her and her girlfriend are driving and it's daylight, and she said a UFO was on the ground. Now, her description almost makes me think of my mother, when my mother claimed that a UFO stopped her on the highway when I'm a baby.
Right.
This felt very much to me like what I was almost hearing a repeat of in her case. Now, then she goes blank. Now, there's more to it. I'm gonna send her a message, and because we're very connected, I haven't talked to her in quite a while. She grew up to save animals. I love her dearly. She had 2 sons pretty much on her own. She raised, gave great lives to as a single mother or a divorced mother, and then went on to give it everything she could to rescue abused babies, horses,
Cool.
animals. Yeah, just literally the salts of the earth kind of people. So, and whatever her experience was, she's always loved it. She's never seemed to have any fear about it. Or also my other friend, when I think about that.
Wow. Well, send them our way.
Absolutely.
We're always
so
looking to
will.
talk to people. So
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
friends of friends. That's always
That's
the
right.
best way to network anyway. So
Right.
Yeah,
but, that's
working
wild.
well for us. Yeah. So that was my what's coming to me kind of quickly with those experiences of, and again, nothing I'm remembering on my own. It's being brought to, and I'm so grateful because again, we've lost so many people in our lives. Not in a mean way, I would say necessarily. It's kind of like, don't go away mad, just go away, sort of.
Right.
Yeah.
That lots of people I feel have felt towards us, to me in particular, because I'm much more vocal about it.
Sure.
I'm always so interested in, people's experiences. I'm like you are. Tell me your weird story.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, yeah. But lots of folks have not been too interested or willing with us. Or they do that private stuff. You hear that often.
Yeah.
They don't want to, be public about it, but they don't have any problem telling you secretly.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff. And then, Chad, can you think of any other out on the road in those experiences? I have one. Again, so much of our experiences have been mind-blowing to me and interesting. Maybe just the bubble I travel in. But very few have been terrifying.
Okay.
The one we mentioned to you that happened to us on Valentine's here this last year was really terrifying to me. And this was very scary for me. Again, it didn't happen to Chad. He thinks I'm nuts. He says, but he does. Because he was right there in the same general area and he just didn't get any of what I was receiving. So we're in the motorhome. Now we're in Kentucky. And we are we're in a big park, big state park, beautiful, huge, spread out all over the place, lots of room, really beautiful, nothing fancy, just natural and gorgeous. And it's not far from, where the heck is all the gold in Kentucky?
Fort Knox.
Yeah.
Fort Knox.
Fort Knox. So Chad had to go onto that place a couple of times for some business. So that's hysterical. Chad in the military. But because they take that job very seriously, we discovered out there.
Oh yeah.
So one day I'm walking the girls, and the girls happen to be the pups that are the Australian Red Heeler and the Australian Shepherd mix. And again, dogs that are herding dogs. I'm walking them. I've raised them. We're very tight. They're leashed. We always had them leashed. We never let them just run. And we've got this huge park, and I'm very happy. Well, I get away from Chad area, and it's just me and the girls. And we're going back more towards the back of this big park that was unfamiliar to me. And I noticed there were signs that said horse trails. So people could bring their horses there, obviously, and, wander back there. So we decided, let's mosey on back that way a little bit, new territory. Now it's dusk. Is it dusk when the sun is setting? Is that what you call it, dusk? I can't think all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It's like dusk time. So there was still visual, but, the lighting was getting a little more hazier and what have you. It's a beautiful day. That's what I do remember, temperature-wise, so on and so forth. Perfect day. Nothing in the cloud. No clouds, no nothing. Perfect sky. But I started hearing, and the girls heard it identically with me. I kept hearing what I was sure were helicopters above us, but there was nothing there. Never could see anything, but heard them very plainly, and they felt low. And then off to the left and down over the hills where you couldn't see in this park, I heard, there was no doubt to me, I heard children screaming. And I heard them screaming for their lives. Screaming at the top of their lungs. I thought I heard men's or a man's voice or men's voice. Couldn't understand or distinct at all language, or again, in the sense of words. But I absolutely heard this mortifying screaming coming. And it sounded again like there were lots of them. And my dogs were scared shitless. Wow. And I was scared even faster. And I'm kind of a plus size. Tell you what, I don't remember getting home. I know that the girls didn't look back and I didn't look back. And I'm telling Chad, there is something creepy that feels military creepy going on over there. And it's kids.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'll tell you, it was so powerful. I never wanted to stay there again. I made that kind of hard on him. Yeah. Because I was pretty matter of fact. But you were cut off there also, if I'm not mistaken. There wasn't a phone signal. Yeah. There wasn't a computer signal. Right. That's creepy also.
That gave me chills. Of course, anytime you mention little kids, something, but little kids screaming.
No.
That is creepy as all get out. So
it was. And we noticed that one of the, Chad might know better about this. I always tried to keep to myself with my pooches. But he's a lot more social butterfly than I am out in public and what have you. I noticed as we'd have to come in and out of this park, you'd have to stop at a gate, like a guard gate. And there you'd have a code, and it had an arm that went up. You had to do the code. You had to know the code. And so one of those guard gate keepers had a thingy on the side of their vehicle that they were ghosty hunters or ghosty busters, right, Chad?
Mm-hmm. Right. I think I did, but I don't remember what we talked about.
Oh, that's weird.
But yeah, I think I mentioned it. I'm like, but they were some kind of ghost hunting team.
Yeah. One of them folks. Yeah, but them screaming children's, that's all I didn't care what it was. I think Chad was trying to get convinced at the time, and it seemed like somebody was trying to rationalize to me, they had some kind of a carnival or a whatever over there. Well, first of all, how do you have helicopters you can't see right above your head? Yeah. And Chad and I have been through those experiences as well. Not sure if we mentioned, probably not, but I'll interject that. We both had, did we get to share with you? I don't think so. I call it my car in black terrifying experience. And Chad had also a car in black experience. Instead of the men in black, as people like to talk about, ours were cars in black. And that both happened to us simultaneously. His was different than mine, but it was happening at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was just scary. It was, for me, just not him as much. His has been very different kinds of experiences, but mine just terrifying.
Right.
Sort of. Like hearing those children scream.
Right.
Yeah, this was in Stone Mountain, Georgia. And that was kind of a crazy time. This is when I was working with my dad in the locomotive business, and we were rebuilding the locomotives in Stone Mountain Park. And
look that place
these locomotives were built, in the early 50s. Some of them just beautiful. They're just beautiful pieces of work. And one particular locomotive, or two of them actually, the engine room is kind of on the inside. There's no steps on the side. They're kind of look like an airplane without, the wings. They're kind of all enclosed. So, instead of being outside the locomotive and working on the engine, you're kind of on the inside. And so I'd be up there working, and, it's kind of hard to get in and out of this thing. It's 10 foot off the ground to get into the doors of these locomotives. So anytime you get a chance, if you were needing an extra tool, if you saw somebody outside, you'd holler down at them, hey, throw me this wrench or that ratchet or whatever. And there was a couple of times I'd be up in there and I'd be like right at the door, and I'd see a shadow walk by, and I'd go out to look to like, hey, throw me this up, and there was nobody there.
Wow.
Another time, now this, where the locomotive station is, where the shop is the old prison. from like back in the Wild West days, 1800s.
Okay.
So, it still had the bars on the windows, and yeah, crazy. So, we start talking all this, ghost stuff. Now, our lead guy that was, the lead mechanic and, my dad's partner in the business, he would do all the electrical work, and it was something that he had to take really lots of concentration to do, and because you got like a bundle of wires, six, it's they're 6 inches around, but there's probably 200-300 little wires in it, so he had to really kind of in a mindset. So he'd send us off, and he would work, late into the night and then into the morning, So he was kind of doing double shifts. Now he's there all by himself. He's got the shop and the office and all locked up. And he said he's up in the cab of the locomotive, doing this wiring. And he's not this kind of guy either. He doesn't go around talking about, ghosts and stuff. He said he heard the door open up, and it was this big, huge metal door, and slam. It would just slam anyway, even if you just coming through it, because of the spring and all on it, and it would just echo. He said he heard it. He heard somebody come like out into the shop from the office and go, Gary, like 3 times. So he's like, well, and this is like 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and he says he gets up, he goes and looks out the cab of the locomotive, and there's nobody there. He said he went over, he turned off his little computers and all this other stuff. He put his tools away. He got down out of the locomotive and left. But we'd be sitting there, we'd work late into the nights, and we had like this one little section that was kind of chain link fence, that we kept all our tools locked up in, and you would just hear it rattle, like somebody was just over there just shaking it, Another time, now this was one of the guys that he was like the head guy and the guys that ran the locomotives, for the tourists and stuff. And we're all sitting there having lunch and everything. And he said, yeah, because we started talking about ghost stories, and they're going, yeah, we were all sitting here one day. They said, and there's 3-4 of them there. We're sitting here having lunch. He said, all of a sudden, this guy comes through the back door and walks kind of past us, turns, goes into the shop. He said they all kind of look at each other like, who was that? And, what's that all about? They said they all get up and they go out into the shop. They said the shop was locked up from the inside, and there was nobody in the shop. Now, they said all 3 of them saw it,
Wow.
This guy.
Wow.
But it was crazy. It was a weird vibe in that place, and there was actually like one cell that was still there, and it was kind of like up underneath the station, and it was really creepy. It was you could feel this like weird energy there. But Stone Mountain Park has got a lot of history of weird, crazy things.
I've been there.
Wow.
I did the hike up to the top, which doesn't look too bad. But you start hiking up that thing, man, in the humidity, and it's like,
oh
my
I never
God.
made the top.
Yeah.
Well, then you appreciate the history in that area.
Uh-huh.
If you've actually physically been there.
Yeah.
This car, what I call the car in black or whatever experiences, Chad's took place in the cemetery. Is it Stone Mountain Cemetery,
Yeah,
Chad?
it's like an old, like from the Confederate, and I think there was like even farther back than
1700s, 1600s.
something like that.
Wow.
Been around forever.
I mean, where they bury their horses with them also.
Oh,
Right.
wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So I get up early one morning because we started, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, we'd start work. And so I'd get up, it was still dark, and I'd walk the dogs through the graveyard,
We were in a small park not far.
Yeah, we were like right around the corner from the graveyard.
Right.
So I'd walk the dogs and like
Nice neighbors.
a couple, it happened a couple of times right in a row. And I'm, like I said, this is 5, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And I'm walking and like there's this old black car. You couldn't see through the windows. It was just all blacked out.
All black.
And like I'd walk past it and it was just really gave me a creepy feeling. And so this was probably like a 1970s kind of car.
Float your boat.
Yeah, big boat, car, 4-door.
Yeah.
Nice, like a,
like
a Lincoln or a Cadillac or something like that.
Which sounds like a lot of the, especially the older Men in Black type stories where you hear about them. Sounds like what they drive. So
Right. Yeah. So this happens to me a couple of times. A couple mornings in a row, 2, 3 times. Right in a row. And the car was in this exact same spot every time.
And never moved.
It never moved. I would.
No people.
Yeah, didn't ever see anybody around or inside it. I couldn't tell, movement or anything. So this happens, 2, 3 times in a row. I never say anything to Alta. I don't even tell her. I never mention it. A couple of days later is when Alta had her experience, and I'll let her tell that.
So it's going to just probably, again, I'm going to just sound nuts because it just makes no sense. But what happens is I'm in this little park all by myself. This little park is a horseshoe.
Yeah, it's kind of a horseshoe.
Kind of
one way in, one way out.
Yeah. And there's just a few of us there, 10, 12 of us, trailers. And so I've got the girls, the Aussies, and we had a kennel that we had set up outside of the trailers so that when I'm outside, because I would do a lot of we create a wearable art. I do some painting and on fabric. So I'd be standing out there underneath the canopy painting with the girls right there in the kennel with me so they could be outside also. And, or a pen. It wasn't actually a kennel. It was a little pen. And so it's a perfect day. It's again, one of these perfect day, which is not easy to say about Georgia. And right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. No, I get that.
And all of a sudden I stop painting. I become aware. Now I'm going to sound just too bizarre. I look up and I don't do much movement other than just lift my head up, and I see a black car entering in. Now, the black car it looks like a thug car. It looks like a thug's car. It is beautiful, menacing, black. It's not very big. It's not like what Chad just described, this boat. And you can't see nothing. It's so black, everything is. And it is moving at a steady clip right towards me. Now, I sound nuts because this is a U-shape, one way in, one way out. He's got to go past me to get out. But I'm telling you, I didn't react that way. I did not at all. It's that frequency thing we were talking about earlier. It's the only thing that makes sense to me. I became instantly, and I don't know how else to say it, terrified. I was terrified.
Right.
Because all of a sudden I knew that car, there's something, what the fuck is going on here? That car is coming at me. Yeah. So I hustled my girls inside that trailer as fast as I could. Now, we weren't in the motorhome at this experience. We were in a trailer of his dad's, a pull-along sport place. And so I hustle the dogs in. I get in there as fast as I can. I've got every window closed. I've got every blind pulled. I'm curled up in my bedroom. Now, these trailers aren't very big, but I'm curled up in my bedroom because my bedroom window, it's got blinds, faces the little driveway, the little gravel drive into our spot. that angle gives me a perfect shot of what drives into my little driveway. And as I'm sitting there and I'm feeling my heart racing out of my body, my girls are losing their mind because I'm totally wigging out, but I'm doing it very controlled. I start peeking through, and that car pulled into our drive, and it stopped. Now there's no sound. There's no, who knows? I got everything shut up, but I'm telling you, I heard no sound. I looked as hard as I could. There was no move. I saw nothing in that car. I couldn't see past the black.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
It was a menacing black. That's the only way to describe it. It sat there for a second too long. It felt like years. And then it just backed out just as calmly as it pulled in.
That seems like some kind of intimidation kind of tactic, man. You know?
Because then it continued its drive out. Now, I have to wait for Chad to get home. It's relatively, I don't know, an hour or two, I don't know, maybe not much longer feeling by the time Chad finally gets home. And thank goodness Chad wants to come home to his babies and, you know, rather than stop off anywhere and take time. He gets in the house and now I'm a curled up, muddled up mess trying to explain to him what I just tried to explain to you all.
Wow.
Well, he just kind of blows me off in a loving way. Oh, that's interesting, sort of. That's not even his word. But he doesn't really respond at all. Now I'm pissed. You know, I need him to care.
Right.
Well, he doesn't. Now, there's a reason I'm sharing that little privacy there is because now we just got to get on with the night. Now, I've got to just tuck that away somewhere like that never happened because I don't even have my beloved who acts like he believes me.
Right.
Now I'm just sounding like I'm crazy. Okay, so yeah. Well, next day, it's a Friday, if I'm not mistaken. We're going to go home for the weekend. It's a 2-3 hour drive to our house. So we just decide just overnight, we're going to go home for the weekend. While we are on the drive, if you know Atlanta traffic, I'd rather travel through another country than to have to deal with right?
Yeah.
So Chad agrees. So we're hauling ass through this insane traffic. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he decides to share with me about his experience in the freaking graveyard 3 days in a row with this other black thing. And I'm like, do you understand what you just said to me? Is that registered at all? It was like it never, it was that kind of bizarre. Well, ending that story, we get back home. Was it, Chad, do you remember? Because I'm kind of mind blanking. Just the end of that. They showed us something.
Yeah, a couple of, that was like one of the last times we stayed there.
The night they decided we were going to come home.
Yeah, they were like
weird.
They were telling me I could be more useful if I just stay, at the office and order parts and take care of that part instead of the mechanic part.
That just came out of nowhere.
And because we had planned on going, back
there
to the camper, for another week or so.
Right. So that was weird.
I'm at work at the shop
in Alabama. I'm in home.
And I get home, and Alta says, that black car's back. And she said it came into that. Now, we lived on a dead-end street. It wasn't even a street. It was just kind of a driveway where us and the house next door shared.
Right.
So she said that this black car, came in, pulled up into the driveway, sat there for a few minutes or whatever, and then just pulled out. Nobody got out of the car. Nothing. Pulled back out and drove off. Man. And this was within the first couple of days that we had gotten back from Atlanta.
What is the point of that?
Yeah.
We weren't interviewing. We weren't anything. We were just surviving and having experiences.
Right.
I just keep saying, what is the point of that? Can you put it down?
Who knows? Who knows?
Right. Exactly.
You guys.
So we keep the pursuit going.
Now, did we, in the last interview, did we ever talk about the voodoo temple that we lived above in the French? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, so now that we're in our new place, we right before the shutdown and everything, I'd be sitting out here on the balcony, and the tours, especially the haunted tours, will stop and talk about our apartment.
Our apartment.
The apartment we're living in
Out of
now.
all the French Quarter.
your current apartment.
Our current apartment.
We would watch them on our balcony talking about us.
I can't remember
Not us.
the brothers' names, but this was back in the 1700s or 1800s. 1800s.
18.
Yeah. And they were two brothers. Apparently, they worked on the West Bank, had pretty good money, making pretty good money. And then they lived here in the French Quarter. And supposedly, I think they lived in the apartment next to us. But
It's all attached.
yeah, which, it's just a wall in between us.
Right.
So they live in that apartment, but they also rented our apartment.
Right.
They had bricked up the doors, the front doors. We only have
Now.
one door here to get in and out of the house. Well, there's one, but all you can do is get out on the balcony. So,
And that wall is all brick.
yeah, so the front door was bricked up, but they also took on their side of the apartment, in their apartment, they took like this bookcase and turned it into a door, like a secret passage. And they were kidnapping people, women. I don't know if they said men, but I think this was particularly women. But they would bring them in here, tie them up, torture them.
Oh.
Yeah. Tie them up, torture them, drain them of blood, and then they would just get rid of them out into the bodies out in the swamp.
Whoa.
The way they got caught is one of the girls got loose, jumped off the balcony, and she survived it, But then the police came. They searched their apartment, but they're like, okay, well, there's nothing here. There's nothing here. And then they find out that, I guess through the landlord or whatever, that they had this apartment too. They come in and find that the front door had been bricked up, and then they discovered the secret passage, through the bookshelf. And this was,
I think we're noted as the first place known for
vampires.
vampirism.
Yeah.
Wow.
Vampires
Just
in
our
there.
luck.
Right.
Wow.
As in,
So the other day, Alta, we had a friend over. This was a couple of 2 or 3 weeks ago. And, social distancing friend, but, we all hung out together, so we're not contaminating
We're like
each other
family,
anyway,
yeah.
so
Like
we always in the same circle. So her and I were sitting on the balcony. Alta's kind of got her chair in the doorway where she's kind of like in between us.
Mm-hmm.
Her and I are in this deep conversation. I can see Alta out of the corner of my eye. She's kind of on my left-hand side. And all of a sudden, I see her head go down, and it was like, it happened so fast, we didn't even have a chance to catch her. And she goes down and like face plants right there into onto the metal of the balcony and railing and all. She's still got a knot on her head, and this was 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
never happened before. I went unconscious for however seconds, whatever it was. And as I'm coming out of this, Chad being the witness, thank God, my witness said that I literally had no movement. Like there was no movement, nothing on my body tried to stop that fall.
Right.
I literally just went
Hands
forward in free fall and this happened. He and I both knew that there was something too creepy and something else going on here.
Yeah.
And I know, I'll just tell you all privately, he tells me privately, don't let this run you out of here. He acknowledged that something else seemed to be happening.
Right.
There's never been a doubt to me. I've had enough experiences in the apartment of hearing things. One time I actually heard a door slam when that's not possible. It wasn't possible. No door slammed. And so, this has been a very strange introduction to being back here.
And she kept saying that something was holding her down. Something pushed her and something was holding her down.
Right.
Now she's kind of almost like in a fetal position, kind of, but like on her knees and her head down.
In the railing.
Into the railing. And yeah, it was.
And something was pushing against me.
Like holding her down.
Like this creepy shit you hear on these ghosty shows on television. I hear people attacked and whatever, and I'm like, oh, that's just a shame. We've had a lot of stuff in our life, but how nothing like that we're aware of. Yeah, it was extremely, it was what it was, and it was mortifying.
Wow. Just
in the sense of realizing that I'm not crazy. I didn't do that. Something who do that. And yeah, it's been so strange.
Wow.
Our Valentine, did we get a chance to share that when we were with you all last?
Right.
The time loop?
Right.
Yeah.
Again, very menacing feeling and terrifying.
Yeah.
Well, New Orleans is full of crazy energy, so that's not very far-fetched.
Yeah.
All that high strangeness.
For real. Well, New Orleans is just full of high strangeness anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, just the history of it there.
Yeah.
Just, that's one of the places that is probably one of the most in the States, I would say, that has a lot of that.
You get that
vibe.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah. That's wild.
So true. And like I said, thank you all so much for looking at that video that we sent you of, how how it's become a ghost town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was just absolutely insane. Just for everybody listening at home, they sent us a video a couple of weeks ago, I think. So it would have been probably, I don't know when they made that video, but I would guess probably beginning of April, maybe. But it's, New Orleans, downtown, the French Quarter area under quarantine, and there's just not a soul on the street. It's just completely empty, and it's just so bizarre and so weird. Yeah. It's like one of those specials you would see on Discovery Channel or something, like what a city without people would look like.
Yeah.
And it's just freaky. It's just freaky.
Right.
And with that said, we've just taken this opportunity, as you allow us, to just tell folks, please remember that we're all here. Yep. I'm still on contract with my shop. I try to work out of my home to the best that we're able to. But, I'm like getting a third of my pay, and Chad's completely out. And everybody we know is in the food and the bar business here. And that's not my industry, but every one of them are out. They're completely out of, work and so on. So we just would like you all to remember we still exist here, and our shop is still viable. We'd like for people to please look at our shop.
Sure. Can you give that information out for folks?
Can you share that, Chad?
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
It's called Earth Odyssey.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crystals and gems and beautiful jewelry and artwork.
All kinds of stuff to make you feel good.
It's really
I happen to be a
stuff.
reader there's 4 of us as readers that are contracted with this shop.
And
we all offer.
Can you do that online? Like, can you do readings online or over the phone?
We do it on the phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now that the shop is quarantined and shut down,
great.
She's giving it everything she can. The lady that owns the shop. I'll just mention she's a young mother who has 3 children of her own, and she's under 40, and just trying to operate. The shop is quite magnificent. And just trying to operate under these kinds of conditions, I can't even imagine. Chad and I don't have children.
Sure.
We've even hesitated getting a pet since we've lost our baby since we've talked to you all last. And Sydney was our last one, and at 13, and she crossed in probably December, I guess, right after we spoke to you all.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you so much. And we just so hesitant. And now we're grateful we haven't with all this uncertainty. But thank you so much, guys, for allowing us to mention the shop.
Anytime. And can you is there a website you can go to and book readings or anything like that?
Yes, you can either go to earthodyssey.com.
Okay.
Or you can call the shop.
Great.
And I don't have the shop number handy right here.
Yeah, well, anybody interested in that, get in touch with them and send
that's wonderful.
The street musicians and stuff like that are really hurting
all of our friends.
The street performers. A lot of them are young kids, so they've got parents that they can. But a lot aren't. Some are elderly and just don't have.
We just want the energy kind of redirected here,
of course,
for folks to know that there are many of us here and that we exist, and just giving it everything we got. Chad's a chef by profession, so he's going to start offering maybe some goodies.
Good.
The street, just the old-fashioned way.
That's good. Hey, anything you can do, get a Facebook, Instagram thing going if you don't have it already, and put that stuff out there. I got lots of friends that are doing that too, and it's a great resource, especially for folks that are around you. If you can do something, good, something quality food for folks, and have them come pick it up, or you deliver it, or something like that. It's a good time to do that. And
that's right.
And
Chad's just really delightful. He's a delightful kind of guy and a happy guy. And so we have a friend here that's he's Mama's Mexican, Papa is Guadalupe or Guatemala. And he really is Mayan, very Mayan. And he's one smart little cookie. He's an older guy who's supporting a whole bunch of people off of selling hot tamales. Wow. And he yells like old-fashioned, moving down the streets of the quarter, hot tamales, and it's just magnificent to our ears because it's it's called life. Trying to hang on.
Yeah, man. Well, we'll keep you guys.
Chad will be doing some of his creations, and we're just really grateful to you guys for being friends, first of all, and keeping this story going. And
absolutely, we're happy to have you guys. Thank you so much for coming back and sharing some more stories with us. And I know that people are going to love listening to this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Just the best. We love you guys. We wish you the best. We can't wait till you come here to visit, and we're going to hug.
Absolutely. Hey, we love you guys too, man. We love you guys too.
For sure.
We'll talk to you soon.
Everyone take care. Thanks so much.
Be safe.
You're welcome.
Take care. Say, Barry.
Yeah.
What's the weirdest job you've ever had?
That's a good question. It would either have to be the time that I worked at a cattle feedlot or the time that I worked for a Greek painter.
Were you his model?
Not quite.
Well, it's funny because one of my weirdest jobs was being a model in art school, but it was portraits, not full body nude. The reason I'm asking is because those jobs may be kind of normal, but we know people are out there that have weirder jobs than that. Maybe you're a mortician. Maybe you're a scientist trying to bring back the dinosaurs or the woolly mammoth.
That'd be cool.
That would be really cool. If you guys out there have weird jobs, unusual jobs, crime scene photographer, maybe you worked at an adult educational film set, if you know what I mean. Wink, wink. Just something that's unusual, out of the ordinary, and, a little bit weird. Hey, those are cool stories, too. We'd love to hear those. So give us a call or an email or whatever. You know how to get a hold of us. Be part of the community of Weirdsville. Dude, Chad and Alta, they bring it.
Big time.
Every time, man.
I mean, their whole life has been just a fascinating tale. And it's one that just continues to get even more and more strange and weird. And we're thankful that they wanted to come on and talk about that.
Yeah. And they are, I mean, they notice the strangeness. They pay attention to it. They embrace the high strangeness that is all around them in their lives. And so, it's maybe they notice more because they're looking, whereas, a lot of us aren't looking for anything,
Right.
We're just existing and we're kind of muddling through. And then all of a sudden, out of the corner of our eye or right in the middle of our face, something just pops up.
Yeah.
And we don't know how to react to it, but they've really, they're taking it all in stride, and they're really embracing it and just living it because their life is full of it and they love it.
Right.
You can tell they really enjoy it. Just the variety of experiences that they've had, So
I think once you've had that many experiences too, it must be you just sort of become a vessel for weirdness. Mm-hmm. And things sort of manifest and you don't think anything is weird about it because it's just normal. Mm-hmm. So crazy stuff.
Yeah, man. With everything from hauntings to alien abduction, obviously, to, I still think that the second that her story on her birthday she calls it her Bigfoot kind of experience, but to me, when at first I thought it was some kind of weird psychic attack, but I think it's all connected to the abduction experience that they had because she heard the woman, her presence, the she presence, and then the pissed off daddy,
right?
And all of that stuff. So I think I think there's a lot of her life that is connected to, and Chad as well, that are connected to these kind of incursions, these interference or whatever with these other beings,
right?
That it's wild.
Yeah,
it's wild.
Right.
That's all there is to it, man.
Yeah. Well, they chose a way to communicate to her that is something that I think maybe they know that she's a person that can make that connection, and so maybe that's why they chose her. But it's wild stuff.
Yeah. And, maybe it was the first time where it was so overwhelming to her and all that other scary information. Maybe that was just them trying to tune in the radio, as it were, you know?
Right.
Maybe that's
true.
how they were trying to, and then, figure out how to make the conduit happen, how to make the connection to go. So, who knows, man? Yeah.
That's a good point.
Great stuff, man.
Yeah.
Chad, Alta, thank you for just being great, interesting people.
Absolutely.
But for sharing all your stories with us.
Absolutely. I'm sure they'll be back on and we'll continue the high strangeness.
For sure. All right. Well, that wraps it up for this week. Next week, we have a treat for you. We have another return, but a more recent friend returning, or a recent guest returning. And that's because his first episode was so popular, and we had so many responses to it, and it was so funny. We got Sam back.
That's great.
Our buddy Sam is back, and we got some. This is going to be
just when you think.
Oh yeah,
you've heard.
We haven't even.
Oh, it's not even.
That was one story last time. We barely touched the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah,
barely even. So he's got for us this second go around. He's got some great juggalo stories.
Yes,
which I never would consider to be words that went in a sequential order out of my mouth ever, but he does.
It's so funny because it is. The Juggalo world, I got really fascinated by it and started watching all the documentaries a couple of years ago, and just got sucked into the rabbit hole that is the Juggalos. And I just never pictured him to be one, but the fact that he is just fantastic. Just adds to the layer of Sam.
Yeah, and we've got some more stories about his, well, I guess you could call it stories of his love life while in Korea before he got married to his lovely wife, who he calls Chairman Wife. So
one of the more unbelievable stories I think I've ever heard. It's hilarious.
And that says a lot. That says a lot.
Yeah, it's funny.
It's going to be another fun, crazy, and definitely weird episode from our buddy Sam, who we love talking to. And we had, again, it was a long episode. We had to cut a bunch out, but it's worth it. It's a good one. So tune in next week for that. And in the meantime, be safe.
Be weird.
As always, if you have a weird story, we want to hear it.
If you have a lot of them, we want to hear them all.
We can't do this podcast without your invaluable contributions.
Whether it's sharing your stories,
listening,
rating,
and spreading the word about the podcast. Thanks for listening. Till next time, be safe.
Be weird.
The stories presented on the What's Your Weird Story